At 9 a.m., all the men are busy loading the bedding onto trucks, cleaning out the clothing room, and packing the kitchen equipment. It must be a true eye-opener for the captain and his guard personnel to observe us at work. Then everything is going like clockwork. Naturally, it is no wonder. Then we are to be at Fort Dix at 12 o'clock for lunch, and from there we will be taken to the New York harbor. Who should be in a greater hurry than we? Yes, it has come at last. We can go home. Much earlier than I had thought. With overflowing joy, we have said goodbye to the farmers. We had our pictures taken and had them quickly developed so that everyone on the farms could have a permanent souvenir of our joint work during the past months. There were many words expressed on the farms whose only witness was the autumn sun. But it is difficult for someone who carries an unquenchable yearning in his heart to accept even the good-intended suggestions. And soldiers from the great battles know that happiness is not dependent on the size of one's purse, rather in the end from a satisfied heart and an untroubled soul. That's why at 10:15 a.m. we climb onto the trucks with a couple of bars of soap and a few other useful things in our sea sacks, and travel unconcerned to Fort Dix without turning around once or without a feeling in our hearts that hangs on what has basically remained foreign to us. But we will never forget the land and the people, because both have given us so much that we will never be separated from it. Fort Dix, New Jersey, stands over the door through which we roll into a gigantic camp with white two-story barracks that are separated into many compounds. The camp spokesman who receives us in our compound unfortunately does not have any personal word for the newly arrived comrades, but follows like a rude drill sergeant throughout the area until he finally directs us to the barracks. Maybe and maybe not, he answers our question if we will be sent on board ship in the next few days. He is a stupid old goat, Kunze declares, and goes with Siegfried and me up the stairs to the upper sleeping room. I don't want to eat half a pound of salt here. Siegfried glances around the large room after we lay our sea sacks on 3 unmade beds. Salt is cheap here, comrade. If you are unlucky, you may eat a whole ton of it, a man with a moon-round face comments from his bed. How long have you been here? I ask curiously. Nearly half a year. He moves toward us and rolls a cigarette with well-trained fingers. When are you going home? Kunze asks. I am no prophet. Until now they have only brought the postal workers together. They are supposed to be sent on board ship soon, apparently so that we can finally get mail from home. He indicates, unconcerned. I would like to have your nerves. Siegfried laughs. We are indeed here to be put on a ship? Go take a long look around. The transport home will take a long time. He grins and wrinkles his round face. Aren't you aware that we are going home? I ask impatiently. That's good to be going home. I should also go home. Why do they ask about it? Don't get your hopes up. In the meantime, you will be permitted to slaughter stinking chickens in Philadelphia. He unfolds an olive-green handkerchief and wipes his nose. You are poorly informed. I lay my hand on his shoulder. We will sail in the next few days. With your hand on your arse by way of Alexanderplatz. He laughs heartily and moves his left hand in circles on his large butt. Either you are full of nonsense or we are. Kunze turns to unpack his sea sack. Be reasonable. You were brought here because there is nothing more to do on the farms. At this time, all the prisoners from the branch camps are coming here. At present, I am on the sick list, and I know what is going on. Perhaps around Christmas, but I am not counting on it. He tells us so specifically that it nearly makes me sick. Damn it, I want to know for sure. Siegfried storms and stomps out of the room. It is possible that they lied to us. I sit on a bed and stare spiritless at Kunze, who covers his face with both hands. With a shrug of the shoulders, the man goes back to his bed to continue to sew his clothes. After a while, Kunze pulls himself together. Tired, he sits next to me and takes his tobacco can from his pocket. Silently, we roll the cigarettes. Now the world must stink, he mumbles after the first draw. Now a wonder must occur. I change the beginning to the well-known hit. And I want to drown in your kisses, Brigitte. He jumps up and hits himself in the forehead. We are idiots. We are triple idiots. They can do this only to us. We always believe. Be quiet, Werner. For heaven's sake, be quiet or I will go crazy, breaks out of me. You are right. It's useless. We must endure it, he says bitterly, and sits down again just as the whistle sounds to eat. Go alone, Helmut. I don't want anything now, he bids. That's out of the question. We won't give them anything. I take his arm. I don't want anything and I can't eat anything. He refuses. Then neither do I. I stretch out on an uncovered mattress and lay my arms under my head. Silently, the blue-grey smoke clouds rise to the ceiling. Even the cigarettes don't taste good when one's consciousness works feverishly. Such an underhanded, mean trick. How can people fill you with hope and have no thought to see it fulfilled? Or didn't the people themselves know any different? Why didn't you go eat? Siegfried rattles us unceremoniously out of our useless grovelling. They can smear it in their hair, I answer, angry at everything. That is stupid. Listen to what they say, he says importantly. We are not going to stay here. Perhaps we will go someplace else today. But the group will be torn apart, that is, for technical reasons. It probably has to do with the transportation. It doesn't matter. The main thing is that the three of us are on the same ship. In any case, we will stay together. Are we in an insane asylum? I assert. Yes, are we going home? Kunze slaps himself on the thigh. They talk about many foolish things. Don't let yourself be confused. Everything will come out. At 1 p.m. is an assembly. Then we will hear more, Siegfried says, satisfied, and lies down on his bed. In the first place, I want to make clear that we are not in an insane asylum. The camp spokesman opens his speech shortly after 1 p.m., while he nervously organizes a bundle of rosters. You are not little children who howl because someone has mistreated you. We are all going home, but not now. Let the postman get out of here first so that we can send a telegram from Bremen. Otherwise, those at home will fall dead from shock if we suddenly appear at the door. That's only secondary. All those who I now call out, repeat your prisoner number immediately, so that no mix-ups occur, and move to the left of the group. I have 7 transport lists that are finalized. Every attempt to try and change these is futile, because the Americans have 2 carbon copies, and are ready to move those to be transferred immediately. So let's begin. After the lists are read, I am standing by a little group of 12 men. Siegfried was not called out, but Kunze was assigned to a group of 40 men. I know for certain that this means our final separation, but I am simply not able to comprehend it. I believe I have reached a state of painlessness, that I can sense nothing. I cannot think, and I have no feeling. Perhaps I have a little fear, but that is all. I stand and stare intermittently from Kunze to Siegfried, to whom as well there seems that nothing can be done. The words of the camp spokesman do not reach as far as my understanding. Not until they are all gone do I comprehend that they have attended my funeral, and wonder to myself why Kunze and Siegfried do not realize that I am dead. But I can hear Siegfried's voice very clearly. He stands in front of me and next to Kunze. Then finally I come back to reality. A buzz hums in my ears as though 2 valves have opened. Yes, I believe that we will see one another again, I hear myself answer. Then come, you must get your things, Siegfried says. The others are already in front of the company office. Okay, I'm going now. Life finally returns to me. How comfortless November can be, Kunze insinuates as we stand a short distance from the truck that will take me away from here. Now the asters are blooming in Germany, I remind myself. Yes, on the graves, Kunze adds. Cut it out. Siegfried stamps with his foot. Life goes on, doesn't it, Helmut? For certain, just like before, betrayed and unmerciful, I am compelled to respond. You will get hold of yourself. Think about your responsibilities to your family and say yes to everything they may ask of you. The day will come when we will be free. Then we can take our lives in our own hands, he encourages me. It's time to get on the truck. Kunze chokes and goes to his truck that is parked in front of the gate. Yes, it's time. I go from one foot to another and hold Siegfried's hand. It is for certain that we will see one another again, he says, and holds my hand tightly in his. Then I'll see you later, Siegfried. Take care, I say, and turn to Kunze. Good luck, Werner, to you and Brigitte. You both deserve each other. I press his hands. Stay the way you are. The stars do not lie. We will get married on your birthday, he stammers, as Siegfried lays his hands on ours. Have a cigarette. The guard hands us his pack after we leave Fort Dix and race along the open road. I am not acquainted with any of the men in the truck. Naturally, I saw one or the other before, even in Alençon, but to really know them, so that one does not feel alone in a time of need, is not the case. That is why I crawl into my coat and try to sleep. The entire day has been too much. Perhaps I should ask the guard where they are taking us, but I don't really care. Finally, as the truck travels through wooded hill country, I begin to take some interest in the area. Impulsively, I ask the American whose cigarettes we have been smoking our destination. West Point, he announces, which I remember I have read the name somewhere in connection with a military academy. What did you ask him? My neighbour wants to know. Where we are going. We are going to West Point, I explain, somewhat unfriendly. Ask him what we are going to do there, the man presses me. It doesn't matter for all I care, train apes. I lean back and look through the slit in the canvas at the mature stands of trees in the forest. As night falls, we reach our destination. A small but clean camp surrounded by a thick forest takes us in. The German spokesman greets us in the clerk's office with heartfelt words and accompanies each one personally to the assigned barracks. Someone has made the beds for us. They are wooden, green-painted bunk beds, whose brand-new mattresses are covered with a white linen sack. A second sack serves as a sleeping bag, in which we can put 2 blankets, like the Prussians with their blue and white checkered bedding. We do not have to wash it ourselves, we are immediately told. After we have placed our shaving equipment on a board fastened to the wall, we are called to eat. The mess hall is located on the other side of the camp, so that we have to go across the grounds, which, with goalposts at both ends, also serves as a soccer field. It looks like it's a training camp for a future national soccer team, I say bitingly. It's possible. The people here in the barracks are certainly young enough, someone says in a Mannheim dialect. Are you from Mannheim? I ask before we enter the dining hall. Yes, he answers and lets me go first. Take plenty, there's more than enough, the mess sergeant says in a Schwabish dialect after we have spooned empty the first plate of a tasteful green pea soup with pork. Then we can be friends. The Mannheimer grins and takes my plate without asking back to the counter. Eat, comrade, and call me Ted. I'd like to call you Helmut. Unfortunately, I have known you since the bad days. He laughs a few moments later and places my full plate on the table. I am pleased, Ted, that I am not completely among strangers. I pull the plate thankfully to me. There is still a full pot of this stuff in the kitchen. Let's keep going. It really tastes good. He does not let up until I strenuously refuse to take another spoonful. Sports. I ate 8 platefuls, he comments, satisfied, as we waltz across the field stuffed like garbage cans the day after Christmas. Hopefully we will be able to sleep with our filled bellies. I register my thoughts. Much better than if they were empty, he says, and shoves me into the barracks. After a short conversation with my new comrade about where he is from and the prospects for the future, Ted and I get to know each other better. The homeland has once again retreated in the far distance. Tomorrow we will go to cut trees on an old shooting range to make a ski area for the US, Military Academy at West Point. But the food and treatment could not be better, the long-time inmates report. Even the work is not taken too seriously. With this knowledge, I snuggle into my warm bed and reflect on the day. A great deal can change in 12 hours, but hope makes it possible to endure everything. The 10th of February 1946. I have overcome myself, and today I resume my diary. The reason for the break lay in my deep depression, during which I simply let everything happen to me more or less as a bystander, and without really being conscious of what was going on. There was nothing special that happened to turn me from my lethargy. The Christmas season was full of meaning, uplifting, and not the least, the Americans did demonstrate brotherly love in good measure, which brought everything to a certain high point. But for that reason it seemed to push me and others into a new kind of misery. The new year saw us without hope, and came and went very quietly. We passed the days out in the woods in snow and ice without anyone concerned whatsoever with what we accomplished. Sometimes we were sent to West Point as snow shovelers, where at the gate George Washington with his drawn sword seemed to reprimand us from his pedestal. But the living guards let us enter the holy shrine of the American army without any trouble, simply glad that we were there to help make the streets passable. Hunger, our greatest enemy, remained far away since the kitchen provided more than enough for everything. Should we look at it correctly, every complaint would be a lie, if we only knew when we would see our homeland again. What I missed the most was my friends. Naturally, it was my own fault when I could not find replacements for them among the many men, but I was afraid that sooner or later I would lose them too, and therefore I closed in around myself, rather than be disappointed once again. But still I am not considered a loner, because people here don't know me otherwise, and I am friendly to everyone. Ted is a good comrade, but unfortunately does not have the same background as I. Since there is a good library in the camp, I spend the long winter evenings with good literature. Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Goethe and Schiller are now my indispensable teachers. Through them, I have finally been able to build things up again. In addition, for some time I no longer spend my days in the woods, but instead I am working with a group in the personnel kitchen in West Point. But all of this did not make me completely healthy, because there were certain assumptions that were not met. While nearly every one of my comrades were from the Western Occupation Zone and had received news from their families, I was just about the only one still waiting for mail. As a consequence, my morale was reduced to zero. Although I comforted myself from one day to the next, every evening brought only disappointment until it ate away my confidence, and I concluded something was not right with my wife. It was not that I sought her among the war dead. No, I often clearly felt in the long nights that she thought about me, but still something was not in order. Despite the unending rumours about the shameful conduct of the German women, which were nourished daily by the American soldiers' talk, I could never connect the lack of mail with it. At least not as the last consequence. Because of the eternal doubt and being torn here and there, I vegetated and finally denied my inner voice any attention until my existence no longer held me in the present or pulled me toward the future. I had nothing to counteract the unknowing which, with its secret working within the soul in the dream-filled nights, laid everything bare and barred any new hope. So the real consciousness by day was in continual struggle with the incomprehensible power of the night, while on the outside I more or less automatically did my work. Then, suddenly, everything changed with one blow. As today, like on all other evenings in this camp, I climb indifferently from the truck that brought us back from West Point every day to the barracks. The duty officer lies on my bed, grinning in anticipation. Since when is it the practice for the drones of this camp to misuse the beds of the workers? I respond, annoyed at the man. For once I would like to have a nice sausage like you bring the others from the kitchen, he says, unashamed, grinning at me. I am only willing to give people something if they also earn it, I explain, and take what I have brought today from my coat pocket and lay it on the nightstand. You will soon see that I deserve all the sausage in West Point when you have read what I have in my possession. He laughs, self-assured. I can buy my own books or check them out of the library, I continue indignantly, and yank the thick olive-green sweater off. No bookstore in the world offers what is on this postcard, he says with a light vibration in his voice, and hands me the card on which months ago I had written my address and sent to the homeland for a return response. Hesitatingly, my fingers take the red card. While I glance at it, all the men in disbelief stand in a half-circle around my bed and share my fate with me. We are all healthy and well. Don't worry about us. Love, Ellie, is inscribed in the handwriting of my wife in the blank space on the card. Only the street name and house number are different, I determine in my bewilderment, and plunge outside. After the second time around the compound, it finally becomes clear to me. They are alive. They are healthy. Every nerve pounds like they are bound while my hands let go of the rusty barbed wire, and in the milky night of the moon my eyes seek the heavens. But like always, nothing reveals itself to whom I can shout my warm thanks, except the same stars that were over me in my deepest sorrow, and which did not allow me even a partial answer. I do not have God in me, otherwise I would not doubt. But didn't he always whisper to me in the many nights of inner dissolution that they were alive, and only unusual circumstances kept the news from me? Miserable worm that I am, why did I not listen to the good inner voice, but instead gave heed to the whisperings of the devil? Yes, yes, we want everything in written proof, even from God, and that has made us nihilists. Finally, after hot and cold shudders wrench my body, I find my way back to the barracks. Shaking, I undress and fall under the covers. You have a fever, Helmut. Ted takes his hand from my damp forehead and goes for the medic. The 5th of March, 1946. The flu epidemic, which laid low nearly 1/3 of the camp for weeks, is receding, and the afflicted are on the road to recovery. Even I am in convalescence, and today I am permitted to leave the quarantine barracks. The snow has disappeared. The athletic field lies dry in the warm March sun, while behind the gates the first green of spring is visible as I wander in the open. Days and nights full of confused, fever-ridden ideas are now behind me. A spring rejuvenation, just like in nature, now controls my entire being. In the meantime, they have dyed our uniforms black for the return home, so that it can only mean in a short time we will begin the return trip home. But I still cannot believe, even though this time it does really appear to be true, since they have on hand zone maps of divided Germany, with the home address of every man carefully identified and noted in his papers. Preparations for the return home are in full swing throughout the camp. Naturally, not on the part of the Americans. What is taking place in the clerk's office remains for us a book with 7 seals. But the purchases in the canteen by the comrades, getting sea-sacks that are now inscribed with home addresses ready, packing and repacking, are all sure signs of the general change. The work in the woods has slowly come to a halt without raising any concern from the Americans, and is a further sign of a coming event. And the prices rise, not in the canteen, but in the items traded by the prisoners of war. While many artists among us spent the long winter nights and quiet Sundays creating genuine works of art such as paintings and carvings, which for the most part they gave away, now there is hardly anything to be had unless one has something special to offer himself. There is one especially gifted man who should be noted, who, despite his dubious appearance, produces the most amazing creations. He built machines out of wood that worked perfectly, carved wonderful wooden fruit pieces and wall plates, even figures in natural colours from the cedar wood in the forests around West Point. Before now, the good man had given his masterpieces more or less to his admirers, and now he must experience how they are sold to others for enormous prices. But it does not bother him. Instead, he continues to work unannoyed, living in the glory enjoyed by true artists. The same is true for others who craft masterful jewellery boxes out of cedar wood, or the shells of turtles that they found the previous summer in the woods. People who possess a rarity, such as the skin of a rattlesnake or the rattles, are offered enormous prices for their treasures. Even the small 14-carat gold cross with chain, which during the winter could be purchased in the canteen for $8, has doubled in price in the sea-sacks of the speculators, since the Americans have no longer made them available. Since I have received mail, and thereby life now has a purpose, I also begin, after a long time, to make purchases in the canteen with the $60 that has grown in my account. In opposition to my indifference of the past months, I feel a real buying frenzy inside me. Actually, what we are experiencing is something on the order of a close-out sale, since already the shelves are quite bare. But the storekeeper is a friendly man, and for someone who was sick and unable to do anything, he still has something under the counter. In any case, within 30 minutes nearly all my dollars are spent, and I return to the barracks to admire my new treasures. The little gold cross with the neat chain that I was lucky enough to acquire, I continually slip through my hands with unrestrained joy. A complete outfit of wood-carving knives is to be my son's inheritance and help me to train my hands, while a chessboard with pieces will be a relaxing pleasure for the entire family. In addition to these presents, I have 30 pieces of the finest toilet soap, which all of Europe has been without for years. Still, there is not enough. We think about everything that our dear ones in the homeland now need. Therefore, while in my heart the holy flame of love blazes, my hands caress the lighter, combs, toothbrushes, toothpaste, powder, perfume, razor blades, skin cream, towels, darning needles, and good supply of darning wool. How wonderful is giving, especially for those who have acquired their entire wealth as a slave. As the work details return, my sea-sack is also packed. Now, if God will permit me to unpack it first when I am home once again. The 16th of March, 1946. Even though for weeks the inexhaustible theme of our return home has dominated all our being, they still send us to our workplaces every day. And that is good. Even though not much work is being done in the forest, just being there is a good diversion for the men. Others are busy with my group in the kitchen at West Point. There everything goes as before, like clockwork, since the soldiers, mostly truck drivers, horse, weapon and equipment handlers for the academy, want to eat. That is why today I climb into the small truck with complete enjoyment and travel to West Point, where as always we arrive at 7 a.m. So you are finally healthy. The sergeant, a product of a Polish maid and a German master, greets me, friendly, as he notices me among his helpers. Yes, Sergeant, I am doing very well. I take the hand he offers me. I am very happy for you, but you look a little thin to me. But that will change quickly, won't it? He laughs like a schoolboy because he knows that I look out for only the best leftovers. You can be sure in my condition I certainly will not pass up your stew. I grin with an old familiarity. That's right. I don't want you to say that old Boda let you go hungry. Come, let's have a cup of coffee first. Today we are having ham and eggs. He leads me to my old eating place. You are a good fellow, Boda. I'm going to cry when I have to tell you goodbye, I explain without moving. Not that. I can't stand tears. I would rather have a case of beer. But tell me, you got a letter, so I heard. He expresses his interest and puts a cup under the coffee machine. Yes, Boda, finally, I explain, and pour condensed milk into the coffee. Then everything is fine. You will soon dig up a bed for the two of you. Everything else is unimportant, he says in dead earnest. At 8:30, the first good-natured soldiers appear for breakfast. Nearly everyone has a joke for us while they hold their plates under the egg scoop. We know them all. That is, we know just how much this one or that one wants to eat and what each individual likes the best. We distribute the portions accordingly. Weeks ago, when we first entered the kitchen, we sensed immediately an uncomfortable animosity on the part of the American personnel. It was worse when the soldiers had to receive their portions from us. They brought us here because the army was being demobilized, and every unneeded man was being sent home. It was a bad beginning, and we wanted to forego the new assignment. But Sergeant Boda and the responsible officer made sure that we were not harmed. After 3 days, the soldiers calmed down, especially after we prepared chicken German style. Even the cleanliness, which we took great pains to maintain, impressed them. With time, we became well acquainted. When once in a while a rube left his chewing gum on the table, the day came when he was ashamed himself and cleaned it up. Sometimes we helped ourselves because we knew our friends and enemies. Our foes received chicken necks and a shriveled apple, while those we liked got drumsticks and bananas. Today that is long forgotten. Wild Jack is still here. He would prefer a whole cow for breakfast. He gets a heaping plate of ham and eggs and is satisfied. Johnny, the long skinny clown, eats no ham, only eggs. That's fine. And Mike, the always sad eyeglass wearer, says thank you. A cup of coffee is enough. All the men have their peculiarities, which we try to take into consideration. Then it is untrue that all people are alike, at least in the small, everyday things. After all have left the dining room satisfied, it's time for us to roll up our sleeves and go to work. All the tables must be washed. The parquet floor must be waxed. The dishes washed. Work in rich measure. But it is a joy to work in an American kitchen where everything is done mechanically. Naturally, you have to know what you are doing. The electrical polisher, for example, causes trouble for every beginner because when it is not handled correctly, it does not polish, but instead hops over the parquet like a wild ram. Now we are familiar with everything and know when the potato peeling machine has to be turned off before all that is left inside are small balls of potatoes. And Boda has great fun with us. Now he doesn't have to worry about inspections anymore. Therefore, he allows us every freedom, especially in the large refrigerator where all the delicacies are kept. Everyone can eat what he wants. That is why by lunch I have put away 2 pounds of cooked ham. From now on I will avoid the potatoes and only take in strong nourishment, since the happiness in me stimulates a mighty appetite. Since Alençon, the Americans have owed me a great amount of provisions, and now it is up to me to even the score. But today I am convinced that if we are the next to be sent home, then we can call it equal. At 7 p.m. we leave our workplace. The kitchen and dining room are polished to a high gleam, and everything is ready for tomorrow's breakfast. Sergeant Boda now has a little worry because we are taking a 5-gallon can of chicken fricassee for our comrades in camp, and he doesn't know for sure if the driver will keep quiet about it. But life is a risk. That's why it doesn't bother our conscience, especially since the good food will only be fed to the pigs. Naturally, everything is supposed to follow regulations, but crack-brained restrictions must always be corrected by those they impact. That is only successful if none of the participants are possessed by a subservient spirit. One can say much against the Americans with regard to their concept of freedom, but still all people can learn from them. That is manifest again when the driver is happy as a clam to put the rule-makers in their place and makes it clear what will be done with the chicken fricassee. "People come first. The pigs will still get their feed," he says, nearly angry, and shoves the tarp aside so that we can sit down. A little later we reach camp. A soft spring breeze moves the first green leaves in the ancient trees of the forest through which we travel. The guard at the gate wants to know what is in the can, and wonders why we are hauling food into camp, but he understands that it is a delicacy for the prisoners and lets us in. In the barracks, Ted is pleased and samples the food after we heat up the can. "We also have a surprise," he says, licking the spoon. "We are leaving here." "So, leaving here, is that all?" I ask skeptically. "By the way, we are not going home." He turns his face to the wall. "What do you mean, damn it all?" I glance into the round, disappointed faces. "We are to attend a school in a camp by New York," they finally explain. "How long does the course last?" I ask, unaccented. "That is not known. In any case, our return home is once again on ice, and we can unpack our sea sacks," a clerk implies who usually is well informed about everything. As a consequence, my inner spirit drops back to the freezing point. After a quick shower, I circle around the barracks until shortly before retreat, and finally lie down exhausted in bed. Before I fall asleep, I am convinced that we have reached a new turning point, and now stand before the last stage of imprisonment. Unusual enough, I feel the old confidence and trust grow inside before sleep lays its gentle hand on my consciousness. The 11th of April, 1946. By and large, it was the most peaceful and refreshing camp during our long sojourn, I say to Ted as we light cigarettes and take one last look at the small, sparkling, clean camp. We are healthier than before. We won't find a situation like this one again very soon, he contemplates, and carefully brushes the cigarette ashes from his sharply pressed black pants. "In the new camp they want to teach us democracy, Ted. Don't forget that one comprehends a new form of government much better on a full stomach." I try to eliminate the fear of the new unknown for him. Then this is the first time I am leaving a camp without any regrets. I don't have to leave my friends behind, and I carry the hope that we are coming closer to freedom. "Then why don't we get on our way instead of them making it so suspenseful?" he mumbles, displeased, as the camp spokesman appears at the head of the convoy and bids farewell with humorous words. "The course lasts only 4 weeks, as far as I have been able to learn. You will still be home before us," he calls as our truck begins to move and rolls out of the camp at the end of the convoy. A warm April morning has already dried the road, and permits the vehicles a quick trip along the winding road through the woods in the direction of New York. Sometimes the trees, with their boughs, wave to us trustingly when they are moved by the wind from the truck. Spring is already in their branches and has freed them from their winter slumber, so that they, like us, are anxiously prepared and await only the starting signal which will allow them to unfold freely. We will take a re-education course, then board a ship, and 14 days later set foot on German soil in Bremen. How simple it all suddenly seems. Actually too simple to be true after so many disappointments. But it cannot be otherwise. It must finally end something like this. Have I anticipated it too long, so that now my heart does not rejoice? Or is there still something that will make my return home a struggle? But no, I am glad. It is only the eternal fear of the incomprehensible power of chance, providence, or fate. The fear of the doubting Thomas, who is punished by the Almighty because he only calls on God in the deepest need and affliction and expects an immediate answer. How naive I really have always been. Again and again I try to push my way into the secrets that life sets down, even though I know that I am knocking on the wrong door. But there is New York. Slowly we travel into the jungle of this world city. Our way goes over Washington Bridge along Broadway, then off a bypass road and later past Manhattan with its mighty skyscrapers and onto Long Island. There are too many impressions to hold them all, but we will never forget the scenes, since it is no picture show. But New York as it really is, a witch's pot without comparison. Gigantic and phenomenal. A city of which mankind can be proud, I believe. Then I have not seen anything greater created by the hand of man. We roll past the happiness of this world, and a short time later Long Island spreads out before us. You are here in Camp Upton, New York. A good-looking American in an elegant civilian suit greets us in the camp theatre, in a German that suggests he is a Rhinelander, while the German camp spokesman stands next to him beaming cheerfully. You will stay in this camp and attend a school which will give you a good foundation in democratic thought to take with you when you board the ship to return home. Naturally, there will be work details in the nearby hospital. The work there is not overly demanding, but it is necessary. The provisions here are abundant, and through your own incentive they can be improved from the hospital kitchen. Whoever is caught stealing is himself guilty. Besides, I don't think the punishment will be very heavy. In any case, to this time no one has wanted to catch anybody. I am available for all difficulties that may come up for any individual. I promise to be here for everyone and when possible to ease any problem. Whoever follows orders will never have a reason to complain. That is all. And now we will elect a company leader who brings with him the necessary prerequisites and will be responsible for the care of 250 men. At 10:30 p.m., about an hour after the unusual welcome speech of this even more unusual American, I enter the orderly room as a newly baked company spokesman, accompanied by the clerk that I have selected. While our quarters consist of tents like those we had in Alençon, floorboards have been laid down, heat is available, and splendid beds are there for us. The orderly room, kitchen, mess hall, and other buildings are regularly constructed barracks. We are greeted like comrades by the other company leaders and the other company personnel, and immediately introduced to our new assignment. The entire responsibility includes practically the functions of a sergeant major, from the paperwork to evening roll call, which is set for 5 p.m. daily except Sundays and holidays. After a plentiful lunch, which consists of spinach, potatoes, and roast beef, my clerk and I sit behind the typewriters and clatter out the names and work rosters in 4 copies, while our comrades pick up bedding and work clothes. When we have finally completed our work and reach into the pack of cigarettes offered us by the very polite company leader and begin to refresh ourselves with a little talk, the gong sounds outside, calling us to roll call. Roll call goes in perfect order. Every company leader has a board with numbers on hooks above his desk, on which every man in camp must hang his token. With these tokens and the work detail rosters, he can determine the company's strength in the orderly room. The U.S. Sergeant on duty does the same thing, so that roll call can be completed, even though some details do not return until about midnight. No problems arise when the officer and I halt at the end of the company and compare lists. The numbers agree. The officer greets the company, friendly, and then retreats again. After I have explained to the group that I don't feel I am cut out to be a company leader, but I am thankful for the trust they have placed in me and will play the boss as long as it is bearable for all concerned, I assign the work details. In the end, everyone seems content since nearly all are assigned to the hospital kitchen, even though some don't understand that we can't spend the entire night redoing the lists so that they can work with their friends. After dinner, I finally have the opportunity to get acquainted with my new quarters, which Ted and 2 others share with me. I stand in front of my bed reflectively considering a pin-up girl, scantily clothed in a teasing nightgown, whose photo is pasted on the tent wall. If I did not meet your taste, you can move into my place. Ted grins at me unashamedly, because I apparently spend too much time in front of the picture. It's in order, Ted. In any case, this kind of wallpaper is not the worst, but in our situation they do stimulate sordid fantasies, I explain, amused, and sit on my bed while my eyes take in the other 9 pictures in a row. Our predecessors, who had hungry eyes for women and undressed them in their thoughts, are now swimming toward home. Number 3 in the tent laughs, a true-hearted Schwab. Then I hope that is a taste of what is ahead for us. I point with my hand to a sumptuous doll. I will not meet anyone quite that beautiful, but what is there is genuine, indicates the 4th one, a schoolteacher from Stralsund named Karsten. That's the most important in any case. There must be a heart sitting under the bosom, otherwise you can keep them all. Something like those can be bought, like a glass of wine. Sometimes it tastes good, other times it doesn't, but you still have to pay for it. The Schwab claps his large backhand against an innocent picture. What do you hear about the return home? I ask abruptly. That is good. I imagined that we are in the news centre and now the company leader asks us what is going on. The schoolteacher wrings his hands theatrically. Do you believe I have had a minute's time before now to chat? I become irritated. Oh, it is always the same with the orderly room gang. They work themselves to death and then squat at the table and sleep with open eyes. Ted laments and continues, so let's instruct the company leader. In this camp, everyone is completely convinced that in the next few weeks we will be shipped out. The schooling consists almost exclusively of lessons in American history, while the work in the hospital plays a secondary role. According to the opinion of the know-it-alls, they are looking at us under a lens in order to distinguish between those who are ripe to return home and those who are future werewolves. So it doesn't matter at all if one was a Nazi before or not. The main thing is that he has given up his former outlook and in the meantime has come to a better understanding. At least that is what they say in camp. And this Mr. Kohlenblau, the American gentleman in the camp, is supposed to have found his closest friends among former members of the SS. That is, in a broad stroke, a picture of this so-called re-education camp. We will be numbered among those returning home, even though Nietzsche warned us against transplanting Americanism to Europe. The foundation of this viewpoint is that individual freedom is better than the lockstep of Nazism, I confirm in closing. It's too bad that no listening device is in the tent. With those statements, you would certainly have earned your ship tickets if Mr. Fox had heard you. The schoolteacher looks at me in amazement. Then do me a favour and go tell him what I said. Those ship tickets are very valuable to me, I suggest, laughingly. And the price? That you have to lick his boots? He asks lightly. No, if only Spitlickers could go home, I would rather stay behind barbed wire. Then I would consider that as a mark of distinction, I explain forcefully. Then I am in agreement with your election, although I voted against you, he expresses candidly. And why were you against me? I ask, slightly irritated. Because at West Point you were such still water, and the reasons were obviously deep, he brings into the open. I was sick up in the mountains, emotionally sick. Do you understand that? I lay my hand on my heart. Yes, very well. Then I had to wait for mail nearly as long as you. He nods in full understanding and leaves the tent. During the course of the evening, my hope for the upcoming return home increases. In conversation with the American gentleman and the German camp spokesman in the orderly room, I learn of the departure of a part of the camp inmates who have just received their diplomas and are to go to sea in the next few days. I especially accept the openness of the long-time inmates from whom the burden of a long, uncertain stay as prisoners appears to be lifted. This I attribute not in the least to the work of this unusual, good-hearted and intelligent Mr. Fox. The man has the gift to radiate a power of persuasion, which is very difficult to ignore, but still something warns me about him that I cannot explain. Perhaps it annoys me because he has the habit when he asks a direct question to avoid looking directly at the individual by covering his watery blue eyes with sunglasses, even though there is no sunlight in the barracks. In the same way, I do not understand the complete lack of concern by the German camp spokesman. He is supposedly an educated former head of a German university, and now accepts every word of the American with a demeanor bordering on mindless worship, even though his words from the most obscene theme to high politics contain many contradictions? Or has the German intellectual seen through the other and plays a magnificent role to assure his return home? Already in bed, I break my head over those two. I plan to watch myself, to exercise caution and keep my eyes open. One thing is clear to me. The physical well-being of my associates is in need of no attention, since the kitchens offer excellent fare which can also be supplemented with the permitted thieving in the hospital. But the future for each one of us certainly lies in the hands of the civilian caretakers, who, like magicians, control not only the masses, but also the intellectuals of the camp like marionettes, and that is what does not allow me to sleep. Then I feel in me the fear of a weakling against the power of the incomparable strong ones. The 23rd of April, 1946. Today, the 17th day after our arrival in Camp Upton, I find time to take up my pen to indulge my hobby and continue with my writing. I pull out of my sea-sack the many pages I have written and spend an hour leafing through them. I am seized with a vision that I have in my hands a contemporary document of our violated generation, which will provide my descendants with a glimpse into an occurrence that has become history and will make them aware of the entire epoch. But that was not my intention. It was to be assumed that one could read about it in the history books that will be written by professional historians who seek authentic documents in order to make possible the actual connections. From the beginning on, I held fast to all of the developments in my immediate neighbourhood, what I heard, thought, and felt. If here or there I have gone too far in my contemplation, saw things false, judged them wrong, I'm still not ready to strike them out. I came to the conclusion to preserve everything how the little infantryman, the courageous German soldier with all of his prerogatives, weaknesses, and errors, experienced, endured, and in nameless sacrifice to the terror of a horrible regime, the terrible conflict of total war, and the interminable suffering of imprisonment, has carried it all patiently to the edge of personal doubt. To him, the German soldier, the hero against his own will, and the brave mothers, wives, brides in the faraway burned and bombed but still treasured homeland, is this record dedicated. Still, it is not so far. Still, it is not for sure that the many pages I have written will reach the homeland with me. New rumours, spread by the hospital personnel, report of deportation to France and England. Because some Americans are not familiar with our mentality, they unknowingly and thoughtlessly seek to stamp out the last sparks of the flame of love for the homeland and for German women in that they boastfully expose their dirty sexual orgies in Germany. They are eager to hold before the shocked eyes of the poor wretches the pictures that they took so that for the prisoners the tortuous nights once again threaten to pulverize their souls. But now the great personality of our civilian guardian is made manifest to me. With persistence and tenacity, he moves against the rumours, using his midday lecture on active democracy in that he stands by the weak, excuses the whisperings of his countrymen, makes them seem like trifles, and becomes something of a psychiatrist for those suffering from prisoner psychosis within the camp community. Furthermore, he knows how to fill the evenings with improvised variety programs so that the masses begin to tear themselves from their initial lethargy and in fact become enthusiastic. The next program is for the entire camp to go to the ballot box. In certain regards, it is to be a practical example of democracy, as the camp is to elect a new spokesman. The candidates have been nominated, and busy hands paint screaming placards which put forward the strengths of each. Although it is clear that the incumbent will be elected again, nearly the entire camp is caught up in the electioneering. But Mr. Fox reaches his objective. The people are diverted. The hate-filled rumours are silenced. Only in a limited sense is the mistrust still awake. But it is silent, like me. Then I have seen through this American Goebbels and recognise his nearly boundless power over us. Only when I set foot in the homeland will I be ready to forgive him. Still, I do not shut myself off from his entire racket, since the hullabaloo is good medicine for all of us.